Open up. Take it. On the brink of death, bleeding out from catastrophic wounds, High Seraph Seraphina Vance pressed her lips to mine, forcing her core essence, the pure energy of a virgin saint, down my throat. I was just a grunt, an expendable bodyguard who should have died in the rift, but thanks to a temporal loop, I had the advantage of hindsight. Looking at the disheveled, flushed High Seraph, I smirked through the pain. Your Highness, this level of service, that's going to cost extra. From that moment on, the supernatural underworld gained a gigolo it wouldn't dare cross. Jet Sterling, protecting the High Seraph is a privilege you couldn't earn in 3 lifetimes. The Sanctuary won't forget your service. A privilege? Bullshit. In his mind, Jet cursed every ancestor of the Sanctuary's high command, but on the surface, he forced a smile uglier than a grimace. This recruit, thanks the commander for the opportunity. Right now, he was standing in front of a warping gate of light that radiated an ancient, terrifying aura. Beyond that gate lay the legendary Eclipse Zone, a rift where 9 out of 10 people didn't come back. And he, a mediocre contract guard whose only talent was looking decent in a uniform, had been selected to join the security detail for the Sanctuary's supreme icon, Seraphina Vance, to hunt for artifacts. In plain English, he was cannon fodder, the high-end kind, designed to take a bullet, trigger a trap, or feed a monster so the princess didn't have to. Jet knew this better than anyone, because he had done this before. In his previous life, right inside this Eclipse Zone, he had been torn to shreds by a Tier 3 beast while protecting this detached, ethereal woman. He died worthless, his name not even a footnote in the mission report. The High Seraph, however, returned with God-tier artifacts. Her power skyrocketed, and she ascended to a plane of existence where ants like him didn't even register. Reborn, he had planned to lay low, hide his power, and survive until old age. But fate is a cruel mistress. She always books you for the gig you want the least. He was selected again. Is everyone ready? A voice as cold as glacial ice cut through the air, devoid of emotion. The team looked up to see a breathtaking woman in a moon-white combat dress hovering before the gate. Seraphina Vance. Skin like porcelain, features like a painting, an aura so pure she didn't seem to belong to this gritty world. Only her eyes were disturbing, calm like a frozen lake, looking at people as if they were inanimate objects. To her, Jet and the other guards were indistinguishable from roadside weeds. We are ready to die for the High Seraph. The other 9 guards shouted in unison, their faces masks of fanatical devotion. To die for her was the ultimate glory. Only Jet lowered his head, a cynical smirk playing on his lips. Brainwashed idiots. Seraphina didn't react to their loyalty oath. She simply nodded and waved a hand. Enter. She turned into a streak of light and vanished into the distortion. The others scrambled to follow. Jet, hanging at the back, took a deep breath and stepped into the light. The world spun and tore apart. When his boots hit solid ground, the smell of copper and rot hit him like a physical blow. The sky was a sickly, bruised purple. The earth was cracked, and distant mountains twisted like the spines of dying leviathans. This was the Eclipse Zone. Form defensive perimeter. Stay alert. Seraphina's voice rang out, commanding and undeniable. She floated mid-air, her dress fluttering, the only pristine thing in this dead world. The guards obeyed, forming a 10-man formation with Seraphina in the center. Jet took the outermost position, the suicide slot. He scanned the perimeter, accessing his memories. If he was right, the first attack would hit within the hour. Not from beasts, but from the rift itself. Suddenly, the ground vibrated. In the dark sky, a pitch-black sun appeared without warning. It's a Black Sun event. An elite guard screamed in terror. Focus your minds. It'll rip your souls out. Before he finished, a cold, invisible vacuum descended from the Black Sun. Jet felt a spike of agony in his skull, like 1,000 icy needles stabbing his brain. The guards around him grunted in pain, their faces draining of color. Even Seraphina frowned, clearly affected. Center your minds, cycle the psionic shielding technique. Seraphina ordered, a hint of urgency in her tone. But it was useless. Jet knew standard techniques were garbage against the Black Sun. In his last life, the squad lost 3 men right here. Their souls were sucked dry, leaving behind empty husks. Jet wasn't about to let history repeat itself. Feigning struggle, he bit down hard on the tip of his tongue. The sharp pain and the taste of blood cleared his head instantly, anchoring his consciousness against the pull. A primitive method, but effective. Art. A blood-curdling scream tore through the silence. Jet glanced left. A guard's eyes had gone gray and lifeless. Drool spilled from his slack jaw, and his body began to twitch. 1. Jet counted. Soon, a second and third scream followed, just like last time. Suddenly, the three husked guards spun around, locking onto the living with empty eyes. Like rabid dogs, they lunged. The formation shattered. Damn it, they've turned. Don't let them get close. Kill them. Panic ensued. The survivors tried to fight off their former comrades while resisting the black sun. Seraphina frowned, snapping her fingers to fire a bolt of holy light at a husk. Purge! The light hit, causing the husk to seize and shriek as if worms were writhing under its skin. But it didn't stop. Instead, it went berserk, clawing at Jet. High Seraph, the purge isn't working. The rift is suppressing our magic. A guard yelled in despair. Seraphina's expression shifted. Her divine light was supposed to be the bane of all corruption, but here it was running at 10% efficiency. The husk's claws were inches from Jet's face. Everyone wrote him off as dead. A grunt couldn't survive that, but Jet moved. Instead of retreating, he stepped into the attack, twisting his body at an impossible angle to dodge the strike. In his hand, a standard-issue iron sword appeared. Shunk. No flash, no wasted movement. He drove the blade precisely through the husk's eye socket. One hit, brain stem severed. The husk collapsed, dead for real this time. Fust. Clean. Lethal. Everyone froze. Even Seraphina, floating above, showed a flicker of surprise in her icy eyes. A grunt with that kind of precision? That wasn't luck. What are you waiting for? An invitation? Jet's cold voice snapped him back to reality. He yanked his blade free, flicking off the gore. Forget the fancy spells. Aim for the head or hack off the limbs. The survivors woke up. Physical trauma worked where magic failed. Kill them. They drew steel and engaged the remaining two husks. It was messy, but they survived. Jet stepped back to the edge, regulating his breathing. That one strike had taken a lot out of him. He had to stay at peak performance. Seraphina's gaze lingered on him for a moment, but she said nothing, simply ramping up her aura to shield the group from the black sun so they could fight. Moments later, the other two husks were put down. Above, the black sun seemed to run out of fuel and faded away. Crisis averted. The survivors collapsed, gasping for air, terror etched on their faces. 15 minutes in, and the 10-man squad was down to 7. Rest for 15. Then we move. Seraphina announced from the air, her tone suggesting the 3 dead men were nothing more than broken equipment. Jet smirked internally. Typical elite. He leaned against a black rock, closing his eyes, mapping the route. If memory served, past the jagged wasteland lay the dead marsh. That was the real meat grinder. Last time, they lost almost everyone there. 15 minutes later, they moved out. Seraphina floated in the center, refusing to let her boots touch the filth. The guards were jumpy. Jet kept a calculated distance, close enough for the formation's buff, far enough to bail if things went south. Soon, a foul-smelling black swamp blocked their path. Green miasma hung over the bubbling sludge. Bon rot miasma. Highly toxic, a guard gasped. Seraphina produced a translucent crystal orb and tossed it up. It hovered, projecting a filtration field over the group. This is an ether pearl. It will filter the air. But stay sharp. The swamp is full of threats. The High Seraph is brilliant. With you leading us, this swamp is a joke. The sycophants were at it again. Seraphina ignored them and drifted forward. Jet trailed behind, eyeing the black mud. The gas wasn't the problem. It was what lived under the mud. A mile in, nothing had happened. The guards relaxed. Guess the dead marsh is all hype. Yeah, nothing dares mess with a High Seraph. Suddenly, the point man's footing vanished. A short scream, and he was yanked under by massive force. Noise plus. Just gone. What the hell? The group froze. Then, another patch of mud exploded. A massive jaw lined with serrated teeth and slime erupted, snapping a guard in half at the waist. Crunch. Blood and organs painted the black mud red. A monstrosity rose, the body of a crocodile, but with 8 writhing octopus tentacles sprouting from its back. It's a Tier 3 beast, the Octocroc. The survivors nearly wet themselves backing away. Form up. Engage. Seraphina shouted, her voice finally showing strain. An Octocroc was a nightmare tank, immune to small arms and most blades. In the swamp, it was basically a Tier 4 threat. The guards scrambled into a back-to-back formation, pale and shaking. Seraphina summoned a glowing energy sword. Vile beast. D. She dove like a Valkyrie, aiming for its skull. It was a beautiful strike. But the beast just roared. It didn't dodge. 8 slimy tentacles lashed out like whips, intercepting her midair. Bang, bang, bang. The impact forced Seraphina back. The slime on the tentacles neutralized her kinetic energy and began corroding her shield. Rip! A tentacle grazed her left shoulder. Her shield shattered, and the white fabric tore, leaving a deep gash on her pale skin. The flesh immediately turned black. Poison! Seraphina groaned, stumbling in the air. She sealed her meridians to stop the spread, but she looked sick. The High Seraph is down. The guards panicked. Distracted. Aim for the eyes, Seraphina ordered through gritted teeth. The guards threw fireballs and ice shards, but they bounced off the beast's hide like pebbles. Roar! Annoyed, the Octocroc opened its maw and unleashed a high-pressure jet of black venom. Moo! The guards scattered. 2 weren't fast enough. Their screams were horrific as they melted into puddles of gore. Now it was just Jet and 1 shaking guard left. Seraphina looked grim. She had miscalculated. The rift suppressed her power too much. If this continued, she would die here. A humiliating end for a prodigy. The Octocroc sensed weakness. It roared in victory, tentacles blocking her escape, and lunged with its maw open to swallow her whole. Seraphina froze. She had nothing left. In that split second of despair, a shadow launched from the ground, putting himself directly between her and the monster. Jet! Suicide! The beast's eyes seemed to mock him as the jaws snapped shut. But Jet didn't get crunched. Mid-air, he twisted his body violently, turning his iron sword into a streak of black light. He dove into the open mouth, aiming not for the throat, but for a tiny, hidden depression on the roof of the mouth. The creature's only weak point, its neural hub, a secret the Sanctuary paid 12 lives to discover in the previous timeline. Now it was Jet's winning lottery ticket. Shunk! The sword buried itself to the hilt. Time stopped. The massive beast went rigid. Its eyes bulged in disbelief. Then chaotic energy detonated from within its skull. Rohair! A deafening screech shook the swamp. The 8 tentacles flailed wildly in death throes. Jet, being the closest, couldn't dodge. A massive tentacle slammed into his back like a wrecking ball. Crack! He spat a fountain of blood and flew like a rag doll, crashing into the distant mud. Seraphina watched in shock. He took that hit for her. A complicated mix of guilt and confusion washed over her, but she had no time to process it. The dying beast was thrashing, churning the swamp into a frenzy. Fighting the pain, Seraphina channeled every last drop of her remaining power into her blade. Sanctuary art, Starfall. Her blade ignited like a comet, slamming into the open wound in the beast's mouth with the force of an orbital strike. Boom! The monster's head exploded from the inside out. Brain matter and bone shrapnel rained down. The colossus shuddered and sank into the mire dead. Silence returned. Seraphina landed, pale as a ghost, leaning on her sword. Black blood oozed from her shoulder. She glanced at the 1 terrified survivor, then looked toward where Jet had landed. Nothing but bubbling black mud. Was he dead? Her chest tightened. Gritting her teeth, she dragged her injured body toward the crash site. Hi, Seraph. The survivor, Brad, stammered. That's dangerous. She ignored him, staring at the murky sludge, just as she was about to accept he was gone. Squelch! A hand shot out, clawing into the bank. A figure, coated in foul mud, dragged itself out. Jet! He looked like hell. His back was a mess of shredded fabric and raw meat. He coughed violently, hacking up blood and sludge. You, Seraphina started. Jet looked up, his eyes cold and devoid of deference. Cough! Your Highness! You owe me a life. His voice was wrecked, but the statement was absolute. Seraphina froze. No one spoke to her like that. She was an icon. People died for her happily. But this man, this grunt, was telling her, you are in my debt. It was a transaction. Seraphina stared into his eyes. No worship, no fear, just cold calculation. He had invested his life in her, and now he wanted his return. After a silence, she nodded. Noted isn't enough. Jet struggled to sit up against a rock. He pulled a vial from his pocket, dry swallowed a black pill, and grinned with bloody teeth. Starting now, I own your life. Until the debt is paid, you follow my orders. Seraphina's pupils dilated. Excuse me. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Take orders from Grunt. It was the most absurd, arrogant joke she'd ever heard. You heard me, Jet wheezed, a smirk playing on his lips. Kill me now and pretend this didn't happen. Or accept the terms. He had her cornered. He knew a righteous icon like her couldn't kill her savior in cold blood, especially with a witness. Seraphina's knuckles turned white on her sword hilt. Kill him. The thought flashed and vanished. Her moral code wouldn't allow it. But obeying him? That was a fate worse than death. You insolent trash. Brad finally found his spine, pointing a shaking finger at Jet. Who do you think you are, talking to the High Seraph like that? Jet didn't even look at him. He kept his eyes on Seraphina. High Seraph, my patience is thin. Every second we waste here is another chance to die. Seraphina's chest heaved. She glared at him, wanted to skin him alive. Finally, through gritted teeth. Fine. She agreed, not out of fear but logic. She was poisoned, drained, and hurt. She needed him. She needed his uncanny knowledge of this hellhole. Good. Jet nodded, as if he expected nothing less. First order. See that cliff? Find a cave. We need a safe house to heal. Seraphina looked like she swallowed a lemon, but she turned and marched toward the cliff. Brad scrambled after her like a puppy. Jet watched her go, smiling. He had gambled and won. He didn't just want a favor. He wanted total operational command. That was the only way to survive and grab the loot he actually came for. He limped after them. They found a small cave hidden by vines. You guard the entrance. Anything moves, scream, Jet ordered Brad. Why should I listen to you? Brad sneered. Jet just stared at him with dead eyes. Unnerved, Brad looked at Seraphina. She ignored him, walking to the back of the cave to meditate. Brad, defeated, sulked at the entrance. Jet sat opposite Seraphina. Your shoulder. Gonna let that rot? Seraphina glared at him, popping a green pill from her inventory. A sanctuary-grade antidote, but instead of fading, the black veins on her shoulder pulsed darker. Useless, Jet said quietly. Octocroc venom eats flesh and mana. Standard pills just suppress it. They don't cure it. Seraphina's face fell. She felt the cold numbness creeping toward her heart. You have a way, she asked, the words tasting like ash. Yes. He tossed another vial, identical to his own, at her feet. Eat it. Seraphina eyed the rough, unmarked bottle with suspicion. What is it? The cure. Why should I trust you? She snapped. How do I know it's not poison? Jet laughed at dry, mocking sound. Your Highness, you're confused. You're begging me, not the other way around. Besides, he looked her up and down. If I wanted to do something to you right now, do you think I need to drug you? The words hit her like a slap. Her face burned red with rage. Humiliation. But as she moved to draw her sword, agony shot through her shoulder. Her arm wouldn't lift. He was right. She was helpless. Jet watched her struggle, enjoying the moment. That's right, princess. Climb down from your pedestal. Don't look at me like that. I'm no saint, but I don't take advantage of dying women. Take it or leave it. The poison hits your heart in 10 minutes. He closed his eyes and began meditating. Silence filled the cave. Seraphina fought a war in her mind. Logic versus Pride. The numbness was spreading. Survival won. Trembling, she grabbed the vial and swallowed the ugly black pill. Fire. Liquid fire burned down her throat and exploded in her stomach. Ugh. She groaned, sweating instantly. It felt like her insides were melting. He poisoned me. She opened her eyes to scream at him, but the fire suddenly rushed to her shoulder. Sizzle. The black rot hissed as the violent medicinal energy attacked it. It wasn't healing. It was scorching the infection away. Dead flesh sloughed off, revealing raw, red meat underneath. Pain. Incredible pain. But with it, relief. The cold numbness vanished. Within minutes, the poison was gone. Seraphina was stunned. The pill didn't just cure her. The leftover energy surged through her, repairing her meridians. It was brutal, but miraculous. More potent than anything the sanctuary produced. Where did a grunt get this? She looked at the man meditating opposite her. Who was he? He played the fool. Yet he was calm, lethal, and prepared. And he took a bullet for her. She couldn't read him. For the first time, she doubted her judgment. Maybe he wasn't the villain she thought he was. They rested for a full day. Jet's recovery speed was freakish. His back was already scarring over. Seraphina was mostly healed. Brad, the sentinel, looked miserable. Time to move. Jet stood, cracking his neck. Seraphina rose. Her hostility noticeably dialed down. Where to? She asked. A question, not a command. Jet pointed east. Through the Wraith Woods. There's a pre-cataclysm bunker hidden there. That was his target. In his last life, another team found it. This time it was his. Wraith Woods. Seraphina frowned. I read the briefing. It's full of psi-vines. Hallucinogens. One breath and you're lost in a nightmare. You read well, Jet nodded. It's dangerous. But if you walk exactly where I walk and don't touch the pretty flowers, we live. Seraphina studied him. He seemed to know everything. Let's go. Jet took point. Brad and Seraphina followed. Jet led them on a bizarre, winding path, dodging open clearings and hugging jagged rocks. Several times, Seraphina sensed massive beasts nearby, but they miraculously avoided detection. This guy, was he psychic? Soon, a dark, twisted forest loomed. The trees looked like tortured souls. The air smelled overly sweet. This is it, Jet whispered. Hold your breath. Don't look at the bright flowers. Step on my footprints. They entered the gloom. Under the twisted roots grew vibrant, neon flowers. Vines. Just glancing at one made Seraphina's vision swim with memories of her childhood training. She bit her lip, forcing focus. Scary stuff. She locked her eyes on Jet's back. Brad, trailing behind, was terrified. But after an hour of silence, his discipline cracked. He peeked. A golden flower swayed in the breeze. Beautiful. Brad's eyes glazed over. He saw himself escaping the rift, a hero. The High Seraph smiling at him. Riches. Power. He giggled, drifting off the path toward the flower. Get back here. Jet's voice cracked like a whip. Brad jolted awake. He was standing on the edge of a hidden fissure, one step from falling into a mossy abyss. He scrambled back, hyperventilating. I didn't mean to. No second chances, Jet said coldly. Do it again, and you stay here as fertilizer. He turned and kept walking. Seraphina watched silently. Jet had saved Brad in his own harsh way. 15 minutes later, Jet stopped at a moss-covered cliff face. Here, where's the bunker? Brad asked, seeing nothing. Jet tapped the rock face in a specific rhythmic sequence. Click, rumble. The rock slid open, revealing a metallic hallway glowing with faint light. No way, Brad gasped. Inside, they found a stone chamber. A skeleton sat on a jade mat in the center. On a table in front of it lay 3 items: a book, a sealed vial, and an ancient sword. The energy radiating from them was intense. Legacy artifacts. Brad breathed heavily, greed flooding his eyes. That's a Tier A technique. Divine pills. An relic weapon. He started to rush forward. Stop. Jet's voice was ice. What? What? Brad turned, bristling. You planning to keep it all, Jet? Finders keepers. Keepers? Jet laughed. You almost walked off a cliff. You think you deserve a cut. We're a team. If not for me. If not for you, we'd be faster. Brad turned to Seraphina. High Seraph. Look at him. He's hoarding sanctuary property. He doesn't respect you. Seraphina glanced at him, then back at Jet. She stayed silent. She was siding with Jet. Brad's blood ran cold. The High Seraph was backing a grunt. Jealousy and malice twisted in his gut. Why him? He looked at the loot. I deserve that sword. With that weapon, he could kill Jet and force the injured Seraphina to submit. He'd take everything. He forced a pathetic smile. Brother Jet, High Seraph, I apologize. I know my place. Could I have one pill? Just to boost my strength so I could be useful. He bowed low. Jet smirked. Oh, is that all? Yes, just one. Brad inched toward the table. Neither stopped him. Brad reached out, his hand bypassing the vial and lunging for the sword. Gotcha. Hum. A blue force field snapped into existence around the table. Arg! Brad screamed as his hand sizzled, black smoke rising from his skin. He recoiled, clutching his burnt hand. A trap. Idiot, Jet said from behind him. You think pre-cataclysm loot is free? Brad whirled around. You knew. Obviously. You set me up. Brad roared. I just gave you enough rope to hang yourself. You went for the weapon to kill us, didn't you? Brad went pale. No, Too late. Jet moved. A blur of motion. He was done with loose ends. In his last life, betrayal killed him. Not this time. He lunged. Iron sword aimed at Brad's heart. Clang. Sparks flew. Seraphina's glowing blade intercepted Jet's strike. Enough, she said. He hasn't committed a crime worthy of death. Brad scrambled behind her. Save me, High Seraph. He's crazy. Jet stared at Seraphina, his eyes truly cold for the first time. Move. I can strip his rank, expel him. But the sanctuary doesn't execute its own without trial, she insisted. The sanctuary isn't here, princess. This is the Eclipse Zone. It's kill or be killed. You spare him now, he puts a knife in your back later. I won't allow murder. Fine. Jet sheathed his sword. He's your problem now. If he kills you, don't haunt me. He turned his back on them and walked to the force field. He began decoding the energy signature. He knew the frequency from his past life. Seraphina stood there, frustrated. She hated Brad, but she couldn't just butcher him. Minutes passed in tense silence. Suddenly, rumble. The floor pitched violently. Dust rained down. Earthquake, Brad screamed. Tectonic shift. The bunker is collapsing. Jet yelled. Run. They bolted for the door. Too late. Crash. The stone entrance slammed shut, and tons of rock buried the exit. Trapped. No. Brad hammered on the rock uselessly. We're dead. The ceiling began to fracture. Massive slabs fell. Under the table. The jade is reinforced. Jet dove under the heavy stone table. Seraphina followed. Brad tried to squeeze in. Get out. Jet kicked him square in the chest. Jet, you bastard. Brad screamed. Splat. A ceiling slab the size of a car flattened him mid-curse. Silence. Seraphina gagged. Jet looked at her. Told you. Crack. The table above them groaned and snapped. Watch out. Jet grabbed Seraphina and curled his body over hers, shielding her with his back just as the roof came down. Impact. Darkness. Pain. Jet felt his ribs snap. He coughed hot blood onto Seraphina's neck. His vision faded. Dying again? Well, at least he took the High Seraph down with him this time. Not a bad way to go. Hey, wake up. Don't you dare sleep. Seraphina's crying voice echoed in the dark. I still owe you a life. She sobbed. You said, my life is yours. Take it back. Jet felt a soft, trembling body press against his. Then cold lips on his. A surge of pure, raw energy, bioether, flooded his mouth. The energy was intense, generating searing heat as it transferred. It felt like burning, but it was life. Is she giving me her core essence? Is she insane? Jet passed out as the heat intensified. Darkness. Time had no meaning. Slowly, Jet floated back to consciousness. He felt good, warm, strong. The crushing weight on his back was there, but it didn't hurt. A mysterious energy was circulating through him, rebuilding his bones stronger than before. He remembered the kiss. It was real. He shifted. He was holding something soft, silky skin against his own. He realized with a jolt that he was hugging Seraphina. And she was naked? What the hell? Wait. The energy transfer. Core essence transfer creates immense thermal discharge. Their combat suits were synthetic. They must have disintegrated. So, he was currently buried under a mountain, spooning the naked High Seraph. If this got out, he'd be public enemy number one. He felt her stir. Crap. If she wakes up and sees this, she'll kill him out of reflex. He had to play this smart. He tightened his hug, buried his face in her bare shoulder, and planted a soft, confused kiss on her skin, acting delirious. Seraphina's eyes fluttered open. Pitch black. First came the sensation of skin on skin, then the smell of musk and dirt, then the realization that a man was holding her, and his lips were on her shoulder. Freeze. Her brain short-circuited. 3 seconds later, nuclear rage detonated. Pervert. I'll kill you. She tried to blast him with mana, but a hand clamped over hers. High Seraph? You're awake. Jet's voice was weak, confused, and perfectly acted. Don't move. Wait. Why are we? What did you do to me? She struggled, but she was drained from the transfer. I didn't do anything. Jet sounded panicked. I woke up like this. I feel healed. Did you save me? He played the innocent beneficiary card. I remember feeling warm energy, like you were healing me. Thank you, Your Highness. He didn't mention the nakedness or the kiss, just the healing. Seraphina paused. She had initiated the transfer. The clothes burning off was a side effect of her action. Technically, he was the victim. Her face went from pale to atomic red in the dark. She couldn't admit to the kiss or the nudity. You let go of me, she hissed. Oh, saw the... Jet released her and turned his back respectfully. Rustling ensued as she pulled a spare dress from her spatial ring. Decent, she muttered, voice trembling. Jet turned back. We need to get out. Ow, like this. Jet channeled the new power in his veins. He felt like a reactor. He punched upward. Boom. Rocks flew like styrofoam. He carved a tunnel straight up to the sunlight. They crawled out into the fresh air. The bunker was a crater. Brad was buried forever. Let's go. Not safe here, Jet said, looking at the rubble. The table was smashed, but the loot survived. The book, the vial, the sword. Jet picked them up. Seraphina watched, biting her lip. By rights, it was finders keepers, but Jet walked over and shoved the ancient sword into her hands. Here. For me? Yeah, it's a frostblade, attuned to your ice affinity. Should boost your output by 30%. How do you know that? Read it in a magazine, Jet lied. He tossed her the vial. 3 purification pills. Cleans your mana pathways. Good for your next level up. He then tucked the shabby-looking book into his own jacket. Wait, she asked. What's the book? Just a basic body strengthening manual, Jet shrugged. I'm trash at magic, so I figure I'll get buff and open a gym if I survive this. He looked sincere. In reality, that book was the Myriad Devil Codex, a forbidden tome that could devour and simulate any ability. The real prize. Seraphina looked at the sword and pills. He gave her the treasures and kept the trash. What? Don't say thanks. Jet cut her off. And don't say you owe me. Consider this. Interest on the debt. Interest. Seraphina twitched. Always a transaction. But she felt lighter. We're even. Dream on. Jet smirked. You still owe me the principal. They moved out, heading for the exit. Without Brad, they moved fast. The awkward tension remained, but Seraphina found herself watching Jet's back. It felt secure. That evening, they camped. Jet roasted some dry ration bars. He handed her a burnt one. She ate it without complaint. I owe you 2 lives now, she said suddenly. The swamp and the cave. Jet chewed his food. So, you planning to propose? Seraphina turned beet red. In your dreams. Jet laughed. The ice was breaking. Day 7. The rift exit opened. A tear in space glowing white. Jet and Seraphina stood with a dozen other ragged survivors from other factions. They stared at the pristine High Seraph and her grunt in awe. Let's go, someone shouted. They flew through the portal. Fresh air, blue sky, a landing platform filled with sanctuary executives. Commander Stone was there. Seraphina, you're safe. Then he saw Jet, and no one else. Where are the others? Where is Brad? Stone's face darkened. Where do you think? A voice sneered. Damian Cross, the sanctuary's golden boy, stepped forward. This loser probably used them as bait to save his own skin. Damian, Seraphina frowned. Seraphina, I was so worried. Damian put on a charming smile, then glared at Jet. Tell us, trash. How did everyone die but you? Jet looked bored. Because they died and I didn't. Lies. Damian shouted. Commander, I suspect foul play. He murdered them. Commander Stone glared at Jet, unleashing his oppressive aura. Speak, boy, or I'll rip the truth from your mind. The pressure hit Jet like a truck. Normal grunts would collapse. Jet just swayed slightly, his new power grounding him. Oh, Stone was surprised. Jet Sterling. Seraphina's voice cut through the noise. Freezing cold. Damian, shut your mouth. What? I'm defending you. Damian gasped. Defending me? Seraphina stepped between Jet and the commander. Jet Sterling is a hero. The crowd gasped. He killed the Octocroc. He saved me from the collapsing bunker. Without him, I will be dead. I stake my reputation on it. She stared down Damian. If anyone accuses him, they accuse me. Silence. Absolute shock. The Ice Queen was defending a grunt? Damian looked like he'd swallowed a bug. But he's a nobody. He is a hero, she repeated. Commander Stone, I request a full commendation for him, and punishment for those casting baseless slander. Commander Stone sweated. This was a political mess. Let's discuss this back at HQ. They boarded the extraction airship. Damian glared daggers at Jet, but said nothing. Jet leaned back, relaxed. He had survived the rift and the politics. That night, in his cabin, a knock. It was Seraphina. She wasn't wearing armor, just a white sundress. She looked normal, beautiful. Here, she handed him a bag. Your reward. I claimed it for you. Credits, ether crystals, and an elite operator badge. She paused. I also filed paperwork. Starting today, you are my personal bodyguard. Jet blinked. Bodyguard? You keeping me close, princess? I feel safer with you, she said simply. Jet looked at her. She was learning. She was gathering allies. All right. Jet grinned, taking the bag. I accept the job. Good. She nodded, blushing slightly, and vanished down the hall. Jet closed the door. Personal bodyguard meant access to high-level resources, and it meant he was now in the center of the storm. He checked his loot. The Myriad Devil Codex hummed in his pocket. The game was just beginning, and this time, Jet Sterling wasn't playing to survive. He was playing to win. Story complete part 2. Mandatory separators.